Hello, and welcome back to Living the Questions podcast. I'm excited to dive in today around a topic that means a lot to me. When I was in my relational leadership year of deep dive and learning relational skills, part of what we got up to in that space was connecting with a word. And I can't remember if it just happened organically that way or if there was something we were going after where we came to these words. I think it was connected to really diving into something we value deeply and it being at the root of that, at the root of what we do, at the root of what we offer. And we touched on this a little bit in my episode with Nisha, whose word is and was delight, which is just the sweetest and always makes me smile like this every time I say it, which if you're only listening, if you can hear it through my voice, it's just quite a big smile. And for me, my word was and is spaciousness. And so this episode today, I want to dive into living into the question of what is spaciousness? What does it mean to me? What does it mean to live a spacious life? What is the difference of leaning into spaciousness and like and creating maybe like distance or a gap? How do those differ? And what are we up to when we're creating space? So there's so much there with space creation. And also, how do we offer spaciousness? Like, how do we offer the spaciousness that we may offer to others, to ourselves? And maybe even less about offering it to ourselves, but actually remembering to live in it too, that we might get up to offering it to another and might be able to remember it when speaking to another and forget to live in it daily ourselves. Which maybe that's the place to start. So I know that for me, I find that that is something that I've been bringing my awareness to, that spaciousness is something that I offer and want to get up to offering in everything that I do. It's something I think I naturally do. And when I discovered that, when that was brought to the surface for me, when it was reflected back, when I started hearing a lot of people say that they felt spacious in my offerings or just in my presence, depending on, what the interaction was, that felt so good to me to hear. And I started to really listen into that. And I was noticing that what I was trying to get up to in my life anyway was to create more spaciousness, was to create breathing room to actually be in life. I think maybe not the first place that I discovered this, but definitely one of the places that really stands out to me as one of the first conversations I was having with spaciousness is work. And so something that I've really leaned into is this idea of rehumanizing business. And what that means to me is not forgetting the human that's a part of the work that we're doing. And so in terms of like a company, not forgetting that we're humans that work together for the business and that we need to pay attention to the humanity inside of our work, the humanness inside of our work, and know that that's actually a part of a really sustainable business, and that regarding humanity inside of your business doesn't have to come at the expense of a quote unquote successful business, that both can be possible. And that the human part, that if we forget the human part, if we don't pay attention to that part, then this part, this business piece has an expiration date, has a burnout rate pretty pretty fast. I was going to say relatively fast. And maybe you can bring in new humans, but that still, this cycle may still happen if we're not paying attention to taking good care of ourselves and of each other inside of a business structure. And so, yeah, rehumanizing business is recognizing that our humanity is important, and we need to not abandon that or disregard that when we're getting into a professional setting. What does it look like to bring that in and know that that is inherently at the root of the longevity, um, the beautiful ever growingness of your business, of the however you deem quote unquote success of your business. It is a part of that. And yeah, and I would say for me, having a heart for rehumanizing business, part of the quote unquote success of a business is having yeah, regarded humans, having humans who feel well taken care of, having humans who have the space to be human. And that includes, that's so many things. That includes things that are really big, like having things like maternity leave, and also having things like bereavement leave, um, having having space for things that, you know, I've only seen in some places, which is like menstrual cycle acknowledgement and leave, which means every month there is a time where people who have cycles may take the first couple of days of that and actually take space. And those things are actually like really wonderful when you think about it, if we are creating space for something like that to take really good care when life is asking us to slow down, in many different variations, as I just said, with those different things there. If we offer that, what can we have to offer when we come back, if that's what we have? I really believe that there's a balance here that we've gotten away from, and I think it's tricky to discover that, to lean into what that actually might, yeah, what that might look like, as we live it out, while we're untangling what like work had become, or just life has become, which is a lot of productivity, a lot of go, 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 and being nonstop and urgency. And, you know, thinking of poor performance as failure, or mistakes as failure, or, um, you know, not, not keeping up or feeling behind as failure. And also even the thought of being quote unquote behind, sometimes we're actually we're not, and it's just that feeling of feeling like we can never catch up, we can never do enough. And I really feel like this is all connected to a lack of spaciousness, a lack of being able to slow down and have time. When we're just constantly producing, there's no room to really rest and recuperate and come back. And a lot of what I've been learning in like nervous system work has really stuck with me, because I've been noticing my body in these ways. The while I'm not an expert in nervous system anything, I do really enjoy getting to learn about my own personal nervous system, and I love learning from people that I work with who are very well versed in these worlds. And one thing that I really love about the nervous system is this idea of rest and digest. When our nervous system is actually feeling grounded and rooted and safe, it allows for this part called rest and digest. Right? We know like the fight or flight, fawn, freeze, and then we have the rest and digest. And whenever whenever I see my body go into that, I get really sweetly giddy about it because I notice it a lot more outside of my nervous system than I do inside. I feel like I start using rest and digest more often now, when I notice that I feel like I have space to just be calm, which is talking about my nervous system, but in real time, I'm noticing myself resting and nourishing myself. So literally rest and digest. And I will notice it when I yawn and I have the space to actually be processing things and yeah, and be moving things. And that in of itself is also the digest piece. And I think that the rest and digest reminds me of how space is needed for our system to be healthy, for our lives to feel um, not always so heightened, not always in this one space of, um, like bracing, it feels like. But when I think about rest and digest, I think about like that. Like that's how those words make me feel. Like that's what that brings up for me. Um, and so, yeah, so in that realm, that brings me back to spaciousness. I think that there's so much we can learn about incorporating spaciousness in our lives. One thing that I've been doing to try to live into this myself, because it can be quite, it can feel really vast to just decide, okay, how am I going to incorporate spaciousness into my life and into, my day to day. And I think that it doesn't look like diving into all of the things because again, that would be counterintuitive. That would be going after productivity all over again, potentially. Um, and also like putting some semblance potentially of perfectionism on it, of like trying to get it right. And that's not the point of spaciousness. The point of spaciousness is giving us room to try, giving us room to test things out, giving us room to not do, maybe. And so, one thing that I have been excitedly testing out and am doing right now with the podcast is living seasonally. It's something I've been wanting to do for a long time. I have this dream of taking off June and December, having a schedule where that's how my timing works with work, where I have the whole month of June just off, and I have the whole month of December just off, like from the end of November into the beginning of January. And December is my birth month. It's the time of year when family is all together. It's just a time when everything is slowing down anyway. Um, we're getting into the winter solstice. We're starting winter. It feels really important to me as like a slowing down point to really lean into that. And so something I'm working very hard towards is having a life where I get to take, if not June, at least December off. It's coming. It's happening. I'm I'm making it. I'm making it towards that goal. And right now, part of how I'm living into what that potentially can look like is through this podcast being seasonal. So having times that are on and having times that are off. And one thing that I'm doing with the seasonal part of the podcast is I am going to be only having seasons in the spring and the fall. So from an equinox to a solstice, and your spring and fall may differ depending on where you're listening to this in the world, which hemisphere you're in. For me, the I am excited to currently be in the season of spring, and I will get to enjoy the summer season, not having to be putting out more work. And also, then when the fall comes for me, I will have another season um, ready to go, which will be really wonderful, which means that I am going to take part of my part of my summer to be in creation again and play with what does that look like, what feels good for that, and also prep myself so that even though part of December will be a output of a couple of episodes before the solstice comes, that I will be prepped enough that I won't have to, that it'll feel rejuvenating to put work out rather than feeling like I'm down to the wire and still working a ton in those months. So I'm playing with what that looks like. And all of this can change, but I'm playing with what that looks like. And right now, this feels really good to me to have those separated seasons and to feel into what that looks like for me to have as a schedule, and how that can inspire me in different ways. And yeah, I'm curious about that. Another thing that I'm playing with is I'm currently in a tea mentorship, and something that felt really profound to me that my teacher was offering to us was this reminder that while we'll be teaching at some point, tea service, that we also are living our teaching. And so part of that is remembering that we are in some way our first student. Um, I don't remember the exact words that she used, but it was something to the effect of your practice matters, and that what you're likely going to be teaching, what you are going to be walking people through, people that will be drawn to you and your work, um, are 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 connected to what you're already working through right now and what you continue to work through. And so having my tea practice and prioritizing that and creating space for that is really important. That it's not just about the work. It's not just about creating space for the work. It's not just about offering spaciousness for others or teaching spaciousness to others. It's about living it to be able to model it, which is the actual teaching, not just words or practice in the moment. It's it is, and it is not only that. It is that, and it is the actual lived practice of it that models it, and that's the teaching more than anything. And that it's really important that the lesson is embodied and is something that we're living every day. And so I think that's where I'm currently at with the question of spaciousness, is how do I live it every day? How do I live it in a way that feels really honoring to me, that reminds me that I have parameters that are good for me to live within, and to not override my system, and to not think that I have a million hours in a day when I don't, to not overgive or over offer when I just don't have that. And to know when I do have that, which just goes back to another episode where we were talking about this with the triage piece that that post so beautifully brought up. It was, yeah, to be reminded, like, when we have enough to offer and can give from there, and when we don't, and knowing the difference, and discerning that and coming from that. And I think spaciousness helps us to see those things. I think offering ourselves space can give us room to actually view things in a way that doesn't feel like we're having to, like, immediately make a decision about something or go from one thing to the next and just continuously be depleted. There's room for us to be even just slightly more resourced. And what can that offer to ourselves, and what can that offer to another or the world? Um, and yeah, I think there's something about spaciousness where it is, how do we embody it? And to me, it's so interesting because spaciousness is many things. I feel like I'm talking about it as one specific thing right now, but it's so many things. It's like, what is space creation to you? And it's funny that I find it in different ways, and I find that I'm connected to it in different ways. I find that I want to create spaciousness in the work that I do. I want to create spaciousness in my day to day. And so in the work that I do, that looks like offering, one of the programs that I offer is called Nourishing the Energetic Body, and it is literally 3 hours carved out once a month, and specifically to carve out space so that myself and those that are joining me in that container are carving out that time at least once a month to create spaciousness for having just time to reflect each month. And we also bring in the energetics of the astrological season of each month. And we talk about different things with that, and we work with different things with that. And the whole container is really, truly about offering yourself space and committing to taking that space each month. And so that's what I want to do in terms of like integrating it in my work. And in my day to day, I want to create spaciousness where when I wake up, the first thing I do isn't go straight to my phone or feel like I need to immediately dive into work if someone has written me a message or I caught an email by accident right when my eyes opened because I was on my phone. To not have that anxiety right when I wake up, to be able to actually ease into the day, or to know that even though I'm working remotely most of the time, that I don't have to always be on and be available, that I can carve out, okay, these are the hours that I work here, and that sometimes have to be flexible with those things depending on what's going on. And also, can I say this is what I can offer, and honor that first myself and share that with others so that they know what my boundaries are, so that I don't feel overwhelmed and I do feel like I have sustainable structure to continue to keep going. And that is rehumanizing business. That is rehumanizing myself, and not abandoning myself, and remembering that I need to take good care of myself, and that I am the best person to do that job, first and foremost. So, yeah, so that's what I feel like I'm discovering that it looks like there. And it also is the space that we reside in, the environment that we're around, this, like our space creation here. What are we creating our space to be? What does it speak to us? How is it reflecting back to us? How is it nourishing us? I think there's so much to be said there about what it communicates, and what we're communicating to to ourselves through how we create space in our lives, how we create the environment around us in our lives. And yeah, there's a lot to reflect on there. And it's a curious thing to look at spaciousness also in that way too. Um, yeah, and I think there's a few other elements that I feel like I'm missing when it comes to space creation, but I think that there's so many different facets to what it can look like to create space. And also to that end, something that I brought up earlier was the discerning the difference of going after space and and discerning when it's actually creating space, creating spaciousness, and when it's creating it for the sake of like distance, or like you've burnt out, so now it's like I'm pushing this too far. Um, yeah, the difference of like distance or avoidance, or um yeah, there, or like isolation, whereas like there's something nourishing about spaciousness as I'm talking about it. Um, I feel like there's a difference here. Like when we're creating space, it is life-giving. It's meant to return us to ourselves. It's like a remembering. It's creating room to breathe. It's creating room to be more you. Um it's creating space to remember that slowing down actually doesn't mean that we're in inertia, and it doesn't mean that we are, you know, behind. It's like it's reminding us that life doesn't have to be at super speed. Spaciousness is, yeah, it's like there's like a generativity to it. There's something that's happening with it that feels really nourishing and life-giving and sustainable. And not that, distance is inherently a bad thing. In this scenario where we might conflate the two, I believe that things like distance and avoidance um, fall into this like burnout category of like it's almost like I can't do it anymore. And so now I'm like, boo, like I have to like, it's not even in my control. I'm almost just doing it because it's the only thing that I know to do, that I can do. It's like a um yeah, coping response. And it's not life-giving. It's just survival at that point. And so maybe that is where you need to be right now, and knowing the difference of spaciousness and the survival piece of isolation, maybe, of like pushing away, of yeah, of like creating space in a different way. And so like, can we discern what we're up to with each one? And can we, if we are in the survival one, can we know that there is an alternative that's possible when you're more resourced, that also looks like space and isn't at the expense of your relationship to self, your relationship to other, your relationship to the work you are doing in this world, that there is a difference there, and that's possible, that it doesn't have to be this or freedom and like spaciousness, in that way, that there is, there is spaciousness available that is freeing, and that is liberating, that is, um, that has room for more of you. Whereas a survival one feels like self-preservation and protection, and potentially less of you, likely due to pushing too far, like getting yourself too far and burning out or resenting um, where you've been, and needing to just like create that distance that wasn't able to be there before. And so, yeah, if we're getting up to taking good care of ourselves in real time, I do think it incorporates this nourishing spaciousness regularly, so that we don't get to the one where we're pushing life-giving everything away, um, and like forcing ourselves to be with space that's not necessarily giving the life that we're actually looking for. And it takes us a bit to get there. So this is me still living into that discernment. It's me playing in real time with what I'm noticing between the two. And I continue to be curious about what that looks like, and what that, what that might be, what that might continue to unfold to be, as I even learn how to incorporate more of that nourishing spaciousness in my life, and discern between when I'm in the two. And I would be curious what your experience is with that, and what that feels like for you, and discerning the difference in your life, in your worlds, and what's been, yeah, what's been interesting about that, what's maybe been tricky about that, what's been nourishing about that potentially, and what you're discovering in that. I would be, yeah, so curious. And so, yeah, for me, oh, spaciousness is my favorite. It's my favorite thing. It leaves room for us to be more of ourselves. It offers space for, us to be, it offers space for more people to come in and be more of themselves too. It offers room for us all to be together while not feeling like there's encroachment on um yeah, on like on ourselves. We're creating room, we're creating breathing room for all of us to be able to be, for more of us to be able to be, and more of other people to be able to be. That's like, that to me is what spaciousness is. It's an honoring of the fact that we are just massively multidimensional humans with so much going on, and we need the room to express bigger. We need the room to be able to discover all the things that we're up to inside of ourselves that we right now maybe feel like we don't have the room for or the capacity to be with. And spaciousness allows for greater room and therefore more capacity. It holds more. And we need to have space to be held. We need to have space for more of ourselves to be held if we want to know more of who we are, if we want to bring more of who we are to the table, first to ourselves and then to another. It's really special to have spaciousness. There's something really gentle about it. There's something really, yeah, secure. There's like security in that, even though it's not necessarily inherently anything that's like spaciousness sounds just vast, but really it feels like the riverbed. It feels like it's holding a sustainable structure and it's giving us room to be flowing freely in it. And I think that that's the thing that I want to learn how to live in and live out. I want to learn how to live in it and discover what it means for me and what that looks like day to day. And I also want to live it out in the work that I do and the way that I just interact with anyone on a day-to-day basis. I think it's a gift to offer it, and we don't always have it to offer, and that's okay. We may not always be able to come from that place. And also, if my desire is to have that at the core of all that I'm up to, what does that mean to me? And how can I continue to live into that? And how can I also give myself, what does it look like to also give myself grace when that's just not what I have, when I'm at capacity, when I don't when I don't have it. Um, it's okay. It doesn't have to be always, and it gets to still be important. And so, yeah, I'm curious to continue to live into that. And thank you for being here for this, yeah, verbal process discovery of what spaciousness currently means to me, what it has meant to me, what it continues to raise as curiosities for me as I move forward and continue to live into the question of what it is, what it looks like, and how I want to live into it and live it out loud. I love spaciousness so much. This will be far from the last time you hear about it from me. And I'm excited for that. That's part of how I will continue to live into it. Yeah, thank you also too for being here for the spaciousness that I am literally practicing in every episode, to take up space to lean into things like this, like having solo episodes be a verbal process in a lot of ways, to have episodes where I share space when I lose a train of thought, Or just, when I'm trying to think something through in a different way, giving myself that space in real time and also not editing it out and allowing it to be a human thing, that we take space, that we allow for, room to not immediately have to know. That's all that this podcast is about, right? It's like being able to be in that liminal space sometimes, being in that unknown, being in the uncertainty and navigating it and allowing room for that to be. And so I think that's, yeah, it's really cool to be in an episode like this that feels like we're inside of the conversation, which I can see continuing to happen in all of these episodes. So thank you for being on that ride with me. And I would love to hear your thoughts and takeaways and anything that comes up for you in this space, your relationship to spaciousness and what that looks like for you, what it continues to look like for you. And yeah, just thank you for being here as always. And I look forward to the next conversation, which, my goodness, we're getting into the season. This is episode 10, and next one will be 11, and we have 14 of this season. So that feels wild. It feels like it's gone real fast. And also we still have lots to go. In honor of spaciousness, we have lots to go, lots of room still to explore. And I'm really excited for the episodes coming up that you'll get to dive into and be a part of. So thank you for being here for this conversation, and excited for more.